Hey guys, how's it going? It's 8-Bit Eric, and today we are going to touch on a topic that actually trended somewhat a little while ago. RGT85 made a video called The Retro Problem, and a lot of people made responses to it. I felt like I wanted to throw my hat into the fray. You know, I'm somebody who has been game collecting, game hunting for quite some time. Yeah, I've seen firsthand how the retro gaming community has evolved throughout the years. I mean, it's only been like what, a decade since my first appearance on Game Chasers, and then a little over a decade with my first video on this channel, which was a video game review. I started this channel as a retro gamer, so this is something that I do have a passion for. But over time, it's really changed with the way that the community's changed. So I wanted to kind of touch base on this. There's aspects of the retro gaming community that I love, and then there's definitely some frustrating ones. So let's go ahead and explore in more detail. So I have a couple of points. The first point that I have to make is the obvious one in the room. You know, what's the one thing that us video game collectors complain about the most when we go to a video game store, a convention, eBay? What's the first thing that we don't like? The price of retro games, which is skyrocketing. Like in recent years, my God, just looking at Wii U, fucking Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Saturn, there's certain consoles where it's like, holy crap. GameCube has gone up like abnormally, where I'm like, what? That game is this much? And, you know, it makes it difficult for new collectors to enter the scene. Like, imagine, like, starting today, getting your first retro video game. Like, where would you even begin? You know, like, imagine trying to get an NES collection of, like, 50 games right now. Several years ago, you would be able to get a lot of, like, 40 games for, like, $80. Now, it's, like, one of the most premium NES titles will cost you more than that. So it's like, oof, you know, I get it. Supply and demand are factors of prices of games, and you know, there's resellers that are going to take advantage of the situation. If there's a game that's trending in price, if it's something that's really wanted, like let's say they notice at a video game convention, people are always asking for a video game, they're going to mark it up. That's the way that it goes, which is frustrating. I get it. I definitely get it. But it can be disheartening to, let's say, you finally find that game that you remember having so many childhood memories of, to see a ridiculous price on it. You know, sometimes hundreds, thousands of dollars. And unfortunately, I think this issue is not going to go away anytime soon. Mostly because it's getting more and more popular to collect these games, especially with certain trends, which leads us to the next problem in the retro gaming community, which is something that at one point was actually frowned upon. Like, I remember a lot of people were like super against this, but then all of a sudden, the last couple of conventions I was at, there was literally booths where there was game grading at. Chum Lee was at a convention from Pawn Stars, and he literally was grading people's games on the spot. I get it. It's a business. Game graders need to make money too and stuff. But the game grading is kind of a problem for various reasons. But real quick, before we talk about the problems for it, let's talk about the good that it can do. All right. So game grading can definitely help you in assessing the condition of a game. If a game is loose, let's say you find it at a garage sale, you're going to be, I guess, pulling back and forth with the person selling it. They might tell you it's near mint. You might say, no, it's a little rough around the edges. When a game is graded, it's given an assessment, a scale of what condition it is in. So that's definitely a benefit to getting a grade game. There's a lack of insider, deals and standards when it comes to games being graded. But I feel personally that game grading can also artificially inflate these prices, because let's say, for example, you go on eBay or you go to a vendor at a convention, they're going to have a near perfect graded fucking Mario 3 for thousands of dollars more than what it would be loose. And casual people that don't know any better are going to think that that's how much their loose copy's worth, you know? And it just becomes like a whole weird situation at the conventions. Sellers take advantage of this at the conventions. It leads to frustration for people who just want to collect video games, right? Without feeling ripped off. Like, at the end of the day, wasn't that what video game channels on YouTube were like back in the day? Like, a decade ago, it was all about finding games for as low of a price to enjoy them. Now it seems like it's like, let's buy these games so we could fucking flip them. And it's, I don't know. That's a whole other topic. But I think definitely it is disheartening to see, you know, game grading and the prices skyrocketing to go hand in hand together, because one directly influences the other. All right. Game grading definitely inflates the retro gaming scene way above the actual value of the games. I think it definitely makes it harder to complete collections. And I'm not sitting here whining or crying. You know, I'm sure there's going to be people watching this. Oh my God, this guy that has thousands of video games and this and that is crying. And that's where my other problem is at. With the retro gaming scene, there's the issue of elitism and snobbery. More particularly with people that are a little bit low key, that look at YouTubers like myself, Game Chasers, Metal Jesus Rocks, and others, like, as the problem. Like, oh, it's you guys are the problem. Yeah, it's frustrating, you know. And then also on top of that, this elitism and snobbery can lead to newcomers in the hobby feeling like they're not real retro gamers because they don't have a huge collection, or they're not real retro gamers because they don't have a certain degree of knowledge. You know, like, they're not knowledgeable enough. You know, I've seen people attack some of my friends. Destiny FOMO, for example. She's been attacked because she's a female, and all these retro gaming elitists feel like, oh, you're not a real gamer. You know, you don't know shit about video games, blah, 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 blah. Like, first of all, why does it fucking matter what anybody fucking knows to collect for a hobby to enjoy video games? And second of all, who the fuck are you to gatekeep? like, are you the fucking encyclopedia of retro Gamematica? No. All right. I honestly think in the retro gaming community, or any gaming community, or any community, doesn't mean, you know, collecting coins community, I think everybody should feel welcomed and be welcomed into a community regardless of you know, their experience or expertise. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with being welcoming? That's one thing that I cannot fucking stand, is the fucking elitism. You know, at the end of the day, we're all just here to have fun and relive gaming memories with fucking Mario games. Yeah, it's important to remember that we all share a love of gaming at the end of the day, and that should be what brings us together. And it's actually dividing us, and that's one of the major problems. But this brings my other topic, because I kind of just touched on it again. There's a related note here. I find it frustrating that some people blame YouTubers for driving up the prices of games. And I know there's going to be people in the comments, well, it's guys like you that make videos about these games, and you're driving up the fucking prices. Now, I'm going to say this. It is true that YouTubers can bring attention to certain games, right? Cheetah Man 2, for example, Activision 52, Nintendo World Championships, Little Samson, Earthbound, Musha, you fucking name the game. Yeah, somebody on YouTube's covered it. But the one thing that I don't like is it's usually blamed on the bigger creators. Never a small creator, guys. Remember, we can't punch down. We can't blame small people for their content that they make. It's solely the big channels, and I think it's a tunneled way of looking and placing the blame on people. And honestly, the blame for high prices cannot be placed solely on YouTubers, big, small, whatever you want to call. There's resellers who hoard consoles and games in warehouses. I've literally seen photos. I've seen videos. There's people that are hoarding these games. They're a huge part of the problem as well. And it even goes back to the elitism and all that and the snobbery. Those people that run these resellers that own these warehouses only blame YouTubers because they don't want these YouTubers to bring attention to their video games. They want to be able to buy all these video games while they can on the cheap so they can put them in their warehouses, store them and hoard them there so they can make the money. They don't want anybody else to be collecting these games. They don't want casual people collecting it. And you know I'm fucking right on this. You know, it's tiring for people to be pointing fingers and blaming who's the blame for the retro community scene as it is right now. And it just takes away from the enjoyment of the hobby. And you know I'm right on that. You know I'm fucking right on that. So, yeah. Now, I guess lastly, I want to talk personally about me. You know, me, baby. My thoughts and where I currently stand on the retro gaming scene after talking about the problems and stuff. I started this channel on YouTube by collecting and reviewing retro games. 8-Bit Eric. That's, you know, my channel started it. And I find myself getting less and less interested in retro gaming. It's kind of hard to explain, but it just seems like the collecting scene is more about buying and selling for profit these days. And then rather a love for the games themselves. And while there's nothing wrong with making money from collecting, because trust me, if you are running a business, by all means, make your bag. I just feel it's not for me personally. And I saw this, and no disrespect to any other companies out there, but a lot of times, and there's a major difference. Like a decade ago, all these game collecting channels were focused on helping provide tips. You know, like Game Chaser, for example. A lot of their seasons, even to this day, are catered towards helping you guys with tips and tricks to finding games for cheap. Like the idea is, let's get these games for cheap so we can enjoy them in our game room. Like that was even in the intro of their first season. You know, it seems like a lot of these channels now that do hunting for toys and games and everything, they buy the stuff for cheap. They get huge collections, huge lots, cool things, but then they turn around and do these auctions on various apps. Not going to name any, but I literally, like one of the last retro gaming conventions I was at, there was people filling up their airport luggage and saying that they were going to sell that stuff with the intent of auctioning it off on these apps, these live streaming apps. Things have fucking changed. Like, I don't know, man. It just seems like more people are like, let's buy this up so we can auction it. And again, there's nothing wrong with you know, selling and making your money and stuff. But when the focus just becomes that in the game collecting scene with the retro games, I don't want any part of it. Like, that's me. You know, I'll always be a retro gamer at heart. I will still collect video games when I can. I'm at like 630 NES games. All that I have left is like the heavy hitters. I'm going to be paying hundreds and thousands of dollars for some of these heavy hitters that I don't have in the collection. I still look for Super Nintendo, Atari, PlayStation, anything you name it. When I go out, when I rarely do go out, I don't really go to the flea markets or game hunt anymore. I'm still keeping a watchful eye. I'm still looking, seeing what I don't have, what I want to afford and stuff. But it's for me. I'm never going to sell, God forbid, unless something serious fucking happens to me. This collection's mine. This is me. This is for me to enjoy while I have this one life that I'm given. And for me, retro game collecting is about the enjoyment and the fun that it brings. And that's what I always intended. But I just wanted to add to the discussion about, you know, some people were like, do you still collect? Do you still do retro? Why don't you play retro? Why don't you review it anymore? Honestly, like as a whole, as far as like game hunting and stuff goes, the problem with the price, the problem with game grading, the problem with resellers, the problem with elitism and snobs, it just kind of turned me away from it. and I felt that this would be a good time to talk about it. You know, because the scene has changed so much that it often doesn't feel like it's about the games anymore. And for me personally, I would rather just have the fun aspect of coming on, talking about games, talking about whatever I want, and streaming, but also playing the new stuff because it feels like I'm experiencing something new for the first time. You know, I've burnt myself out on playing. There's only so many more times that I could play Super Mario Brothers on top of that. I'm just like, yo, you know, I want to play Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I want to play, you know, God of War Ragnarok. I want to play Hogwarts Legacy. I want to play this game. Like, it's so fucking fun. And what's crazy is my last panel that I did at a convention, I asked the crowd, the people in attendance at the panel, I was like, hey, so how many of you guys modern game? Not one person raised their hand. And that shocked me. Like, that really fucking shocked me. But it showed me that retro gaming community is still very strong. But a lot of people are set in their ways. And unfortunately, they're having to struggle through these problems. And I don't know if a lot of them even are aware of, like, how difficult game collecting is. And I hope that this video kind of brought some kind of thought. Maybe, you know, if you're a game collector and you're just now starting out, like a lot of these guys that were in my panel, there was people that were just barely collecting during my panel, and I'm like, holy cow, y'all came in at a rough time. Hopefully this brought attention. You know, always keep a lookout and stuff. If this is for you, if this is your passion, good. I'm not shaming anybody. You can have all the fun in it that you want. But for me personally, outside of casually looking here or there, yeah, there's just way too much that at times it's disheartening, like I said. So I hope you like this video. I just wanted to give a little discussion piece because I saw a whole bunch of people trending and I saw people fucking trolling everybody's thumbnails. So I wanted to do the same thumbnail back just to trigger some of the elitists that threw a fit about it. So thank you guys. Thank you for watching. I'll see you on the next one.